Welcome to my show. A guest here. Her name is Rhonda Parmer. Mrs. Rhonda, how are you doing, ma?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
I'm so very, very much happy to be with you today, Mrs. Rhonda. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a speaker and an executive coach. Can you please, Mrs. Rhonda, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Rhonda?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Timmy. I'm a former educator. I have 31 years in public education and retired early because of a back injury. I thought I was going to have surgery. And after 3 months of physical therapy twice a day, I ended up not needing back surgery and felt better than ever. So I'd already retired. I knew I had a lot left to give. So I started a company. Now, when I was in public education, I started out as a substitute and worked myself up all the way to associate superintendent. And for the last 12 years of my career, I was working with underperforming schools. And in the United States, every school, well, especially in Texas, every school receives a grade like a, B, C, D, or F. So I worked with schools that were not A's and B's. I had a few A's and B's, but mostly I was assigned to work with the schools that were struggling. And what was told to me is go in there and clean house, you know, get new teachers, hire a new principal. And I remember thinking, my gosh, these are people. Let's wait, let's find out what's going on. Maybe they need resources or training or whatever. And it took me, Timmy, it took me about 3 years to be able to say this out loud, I guess, put it all together. But the problem with the underperforming schools was not anything except mindset and a little bit of training for our teachers. So um, I really helped the principals work with mindset on those um, campuses where we started to just not say these kids or those kids or um, we realized people are not defined, students especially are not defined by their zip codes or their where they live or their home, their parents' income. And once we could transform the teachers and principals to see this classroom full of potential adults, successful adults, you know, when we look in this classroom, instead of seeing students who might be struggling, let's go all the way into the future and where can they be? And once we could see them having a successful life, it changed the way we taught them and it changed that school's performance. It changed the whole neighborhood, really. And so I thought, wow, if we can do that with education, surely we can do that in nonprofits or small businesses or even corporate world. And so I became a business coach. I never thought I would do that, but all of the same systems that we used in education can be applied. They transcend sectors. So that's what I do. I train on site and remotely, and I also coach individuals and teams.
And it's very beautiful you being a coach. Honestly speaking, at least you're doing something. And that's one of the main reasons why we're also speaking today. Honestly speaking, and also mindset is one of a very big thing that is a very heavy thing in our time. Most especially with the students, mindset is very powerful. When the mindset is there, a lot of things just come on, and it's most of the time one needs guidance in those type of mindset to correct them and let them know this is how it is done and see the future and see how one can definitely develop that. From your experience, you've had, Mrs. Amaranda, have you written any book or are you planning to write any book in the coming future, Mrs. Rhonda?
Yes, thank you. So I have two books. One is very, very close to being published. It's called Blocks, Clocks, and Socks. Transform the way you lead your teams and yourselves. And so those three things, blocks represent blocks of time and how you prioritize your time and even put a boundary on your time. And so you're modeling healthy boundaries to others so that this is my protected time to work on things that only I can do. And then clocks, of course, represents time again, but it's time with intention of arriving and leaving on time. I don't know about in your culture, but over here we have a big issue with arriving and ending on time. So, and they're not the same type of people who do that. So the ones who come late leave early, and the ones who come early stay late. So we've got to work on that mindset. And then the socks represent something you would do for yourself. Something, get home early enough to kick off your shoes and relax, or go somewhere else with your family, or do something that is a completely different way of thinking to rest your brain so you're good to go back the next day. So that's blocks, clocks, and socks. Transform the way you lead your team and others. And the other one is called Ease into Leadership, and it's a field guide for new or aspiring leaders. And so it doesn't have to be read cover to cover. The first chapter really is a summary of all of the great researchers worldwide on leadership, whether it's in business or education. And then I've taken all of those mm, theories and concepts and created my own framework. So ease into leadership, ease, excuse me, is an acronym, and it stands for evaluate. Well, it stands for many things, but over excuse me, Timmy, I'm sorry. I'm in Houston, Texas, and we have some weird seasonal allergies going on. But anyway, that book is designed to help anybody jumpstart their conversations with their team. So let me give you an example. If I use that word ease and I have a framework, it's in the business world and education world. It's for anything that a leader would have to work on. So communication, building their team, setting up a schedule, writing a budget, creating business partners, um, doing a values audit. Everything that you can think of, every task that a leader or potential leader would need to work on, I've given them a framework that will just generate questions. It's not like a compliance thing that they have to fill out and turn in to anybody. It truly is just a framework with a bunch of questions. And then, since I'm an educator, I have an implementation guide there. So there's a rubric where they can rate themselves on each of those. And based on where they rate themselves, then there are questions, reflective questions, or coaching tips to help them move to the next level. So I'll give you an example with communication. The first thing is evaluate your audience. So, who is the audience and what message do you need to make sure? And so, this is super simple. Um, and then, oh, I'm at a blank right now. But anyway, let me pull one up. Sorry, Timmy. I'm gonna pull one up for you. But we can go on to another question and I can come back to it.
All right. Thank you so much for those insights, Mrs. Rhonda. Honestly speaking, your books are very beautiful. I think you, in your book, you are trying to, develop a lot of things, correct a lot of things when it comes to books and, when it comes to the situation and mindset, when it comes to also leadership as well. Thank you so much for those insights. To be a very, very, very beautiful book. Thank you so much, man. And I would like to dive to the point of strength and what someone should be good at. As a leader and people who are also striving to lead in the coming future, they have to know their strengths. You have to know, their strength and also what they are very good at. So, how do you think leaders can distinguish between their true strengths and what they think they should be good at, Mrs. Rhonda?
I love that question, Timmy. Okay, so one of the very first things I do when I'm coaching a person is I give them a self assessment. So the one that I use here is called the DISC, and that stands for the four different types of communication or behavior styles. And it really helps them not only understand themselves. So, um, those four types of communication or behavior styles, one is direct, one is influential, one is steady, and one is compliant. And they have a lot of different traits that follow under them. But once they understand and can identify their own strengths in communication and behavior, then they can compare themselves to other types of people when they understand those four types: direct, influential, steady, or compliant. And they learn a lot about themselves in terms of, are they more task oriented or people oriented? And Timmy, what we found in the research on communication and behavior, it basically makes up your personality, is a third of this is hereditary. You really, you got it. Whatever it is, you got it when you were born. Another third of it is based on what was modeled to you from the time you were born till around the time you were 10 or so, between 8 and 12. Um, and that there's a lot of impressions on your brain from everything you see and hear and experience in that time frame. It's how we learn language, it's how we learn body movements, how we learn um, whether we want to be daring or conservative. And there's chemical and structural changes that happen in your brain that make that up. So 66% of your brain and the way you act, the way your brain processes things, is up until you're 10. Then the other third, the third that we really have a chance to affect and adapt, is really the last third that has to do with our experiences. And this is like from age 12 on to where we are now. All of our experiences also impact and change our brains. Again, it's chemical changes and structural changes in our brains that make up what our strengths are. And if people don't think, reflect, or have some kind of tool to identify their strengths, sometimes they might be wrong. Now, you asked a question of what should their strengths be if you're a leader. And I say a couple of things now, because you can be direct or compliant or steady or whatever, all of those communication styles, but you have to have two things. But I say a person needs to serve others. So that servant leader mindset, where your leadership is not how many people are under you and how many subordinates do you have and how many people you get to tell what to do, but how many more leaders do you develop? How many more do you bring up and share that you're trying to help them move on to the next level of leadership? And the other thing I talk about a lot with my coaching is confidence or courage. So confidence and courage, I think, kind of are sort of similar, but I think a lot of leaders struggle with confidence and they don't even realize it. So I was struggling with this at first. I was telling everybody, well, I'm a confidence coach and I help build confidence. And nobody wants to admit they don't have confidence, you know?
Yeah.
So who's going to hire me, you know? But once we do that assessment, they can see where their strengths are. But I ask a lot of questions and find out where is their confidence level. Because if they're wearing this, oh, I worked 14 hours today as a badge of honor, there's a confidence problem.
Yeah.
Or if they're not delegating and they're doing everything on their own, there's a different type of confidence problem. So I think they need to have servant leadership and a proper amount of confidence or courage to be able to do their job that only they can do, delegate to others to build them up to create new leaders, and set healthy boundaries to show people how not to burn out.
Definitely, I completely agree with you, Mrs. Rhonda. Honestly speaking, when someone is leading, that's strength based, and I also agree with you with that child this time. I think when we are a child, that is when those brain develops. Anything that or experience that we have in child, that's why we have a lot of people when they are elderly or when they are in their maturity state, they said, "In my childhood, this happened, that happened." So I think that chemicals during that childhood really improve and also define where the strength is. And when someone can identify that strength, then someone would know how to implement those strengths when it comes to leadership. I think that strength is what someone needs to assess first. Thank you so much for those insights, Mrs. Rhonda. And I also like to dive to the point of also practical ways. I know you've dived more when it comes to building the teams, when it comes to the strength base as a leader. I would like to also dive a little bit more on that area, Mrs. Rhonda. What do you think are some practical ways you think leaders can also enforce these boundaries? You know, they've built this strength now. How do you think they can also enforce these boundaries without appearing unapproachable? You know, there are some situations whereby when a leader comes in or when the person who knows his strength base comes in, people believe that the person is really not really unapproachable, stuff like that. And how do you think leaders can also communicate that boundaries clearly to teams and stakeholders while maintaining that strong relationship with those teams, Mrs. Rhonda?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Timmy. So you alluded to this with that relationship. So let's say a new leader comes in. One of the most powerful things I ever saw a brand new leader do, and this is 30 years ago now, but I've been training people and telling people about it still. It wasn't 30 years, probably 20. But it was a new female pastor to a church that was very, very conservative and very leery of having a female pastor. But what she did to build those relationships, she did home visits. And so she set up small groups. So I relate this in the corporate world to, let's say, a new leader of a bank. they hire the CEO of a bank from outside. It's not somebody that grew up in the bank. So this person is coming and they have all the knowledge to run a bank, but they don't know one single person there. So they could set up informal meetings on site, off site, at someone's home, at a restaurant, or whatever. But generally, when people are eating food, they bring their guard down a little bit. So then that person, the new CEO or whoever it is, the new leader, would come in and ask the three questions. You've seen this before: stop, start, continue, right?
Yeah.
It's what should we stop? What have y'all been wanting to stop? And now is a good time when we have this new change here. What can we stop doing that y'all have been wanting to stop? Or what have y'all wanted to start? How can we work together and get something in place that y'all have been really thinking about starting? And then what are the sacred cows? What do we not touch at all? And that's really good information for a brand new leader to find out what everybody's passionate about. So that's step one, building that relationship. Then the second part is what your question was really about. Now, how do you model setting those boundaries? And I do have three very practical ways. And that I alluded to this earlier when I talked about that book, Blocks, Clocks, and
Mm.
Socks. But one of them is super easy. It's don't send emails after hours. Again, I'm not sure about your culture, but over here, again, it's like a badge of honor. Oh, yeah, I was up till midnight sending emails, or oh, I woke up in the middle of the night and I sent some emails. And then the other people have their phone by them in case of emergency, but then it's dinging, dinging, dinging from someone sending emails in the middle of the night. So we model a respect of everybody's personal time by simply showing them some tools on the automated emails that if you can't sleep and you just have to send that email in the middle of the night, at least put a delay delivery feature on it so they don't get it until the next morning. So that's one way, but that's only protecting the other people. We really want to protect that leader. So hey, leader, instead of waking up in the middle of the night sending emails, write yourself a quick note. You can't sleep, it's too much, it's right here. Just send yourself a text or write yourself a note. But so, because most people do stuff like that because they're afraid they're going to forget. Okay,
Mm.
you're not going to forget. Write it down or just email yourself and then go back to sleep. So that's one way. The other way is to pick an accountability partner. If you're the leader, this could be your secretary or it could be your assistant, and y'all leave on time as much as you can. I understand there are meetings or extra, different things that come up, either a
Yeah.
board meeting, shareholder meeting, or some kind of event where people need to stay after. But it's very powerful for the leaders to model working within the time frames. It makes other people feel like, okay, this is good. I don't have to stay late to try to get my work done either. We're going to all get it done in a timely manner during the hours that are set up and established. Those are two easy ways. The A third one is that I teach people about is, this sounds weird, but it's literally, let's go back to that bank example again. It's going around every day to say hi, at least check in. If you do that every day, it doesn't take long, but if you do it every day, you get to check in on people's mental states. So if I was walking by you, Timmy, and every day I knew when I walked by, you're always ready to wave, hi, how's it going? And then one day I walk by and, hey, Timmy, how's it going? And you just barely look up, pretty good. And then hurry up and look down. I know there's something wrong. It's not the right pattern. So I can model that caring and having that relationship. So there's a lot of people who say, oh, but that's a boundary, that's a personal, you don't want to get too personal. And where's that boundary? But in in our world today, yes, we need to keep a boundary of professionalism, but that includes caring for people. And you don't have to pry and get all too much detail unless they want to give it. And you still have to be careful, but there's there's no boundary on caring.
Thank you so much for those insights, Mrs. Rhonda. And I also sincerely agree with you. Well, we do know that leadership takes a lot of features and a lot of time. Time is very important. And knowing how to ask the right question in my own ways, because the question you brought out now, given that question in the first place, what are the issues you think need to be corrected? What do you think need to be implemented? What are the things you do not need to touch? Those questions, when someone know how to write or ask a very good question, I think the person is going to find it very easy in leadership. And also having that timing, as you said, personal timing, those people to have their personal timing, respecting that timing and knowing how to engage and also speak with them will definitely work. Thank you so much for that insight, Mrs. Rhonda. And lastly, Mrs. Rhonda, I would like to put in this question, Mrs. Rhonda. I would like to dive to the point of daily habits or routines, Mrs. Rhonda. What daily habits or routines you recommend to help leaders recharge and stay focused with time, Mrs. Amronda?
Well, okay, so you're getting into, for this question, for me, you're getting into a little bit of a spiritual world. So I do believe that people need to somehow reconnect on a spiritual level through themselves. So this, I'm going to explain it through my spirituality, and other people do this through being in tune with nature or singing or traveling or doing yoga or exercise or whatever. But for me, it is prayer. And so, how I start my day before I even step one foot out of the bed, praying with gratitude. And I believe that it's not praying to ask, ask, ask. It's praying to think, think, think. And when you're thankful, that just is another chemical change in your brain that sets you up. That's a daily habit. And I always say habits transcend motivation and inspiration. Motivation and inspiration are great. We all need them. But there's going to be days when you don't have that. So what do you rely on? Your habit. So I do believe in a some kind of morning spiritual habit that sets your mind right for the great day you're going to have. I also believe in exercise. Now, I don't have that habit down all the way, so it's sort of sporadic throughout the day. But we have sometimes we have these watches that you can set a timer. So I at least say, hey, set the timer for 45 minutes, stand up and at least walk around every 45 minutes. Like you can get stuck here and ugh. So no matter what kind of job you're in, get up every hour and go do something else. It's great if you have a chance to go outside and get some vitamin D, but I understand that's not possible everywhere. Another habit, of course, is I mentioned earlier, just checking in with your people, noticing them, acknowledging what they're doing, even if it's not already all the way meeting your expectations. Acknowledging attempts and encouraging people, that's going to build loyalty and help people get behind you on that vision to help move everything forward. And I used to have a habit of, oh, you better empty your email every single day. But I've kind of eased up on that one. Like, no, you know, I'll skim it and get to the ones I
Yeah.
need to. But um, as far as other habits, though, I just believe we got to put people first. Put yourself, obviously, connect on your spiritual level. When you do that, you sort of transcend the physical. There's all these things happening and all these thoughts you have, but no matter what it is, whatever spiritual thing habit you can, whatever is that you connect with on your in your soul, helps you escape for a little bit, even if it's looking at pictures of a beautiful place where you can imagine, I'm going to go visit that place one day, or I'm going to just pretend I'm there right now. It gives your brain a rest and it shifts the way your thoughts are trending, so you have a break. It's a rest for your brain. The last thing I was going to say is a nighttime routine. Another one of the questions I told you that when I'm working with people as an executive coach, I do that assessment, of course, so they can look at their strengths. But then I ask them, what is your nighttime routine? And you'll be shocked, Timmy. 90% of the people don't even know what I'm talking about because they just work, 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 work. Or when they get home, they're hurrying up and doing whatever they had to do until they just exhausted fall asleep. I'm like, did you brush your teeth? Did you take a bath? What do you do at night to get ready to de escalate and detach from everything? Because over the last 30 years, I guess it's everywhere, we've just been work, 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 work. And look what that's done to us as a whole earth. I mean, all over the earth, this is a problem that we need to. If you go back 100 years ago, whenever we didn't have technology and you had to really work to take care of yourself, you didn't have all these emotional problems. So anyway, I'm rambling, but I do think we need to connect on a spiritual level and have some habits morning and night so we can get back in tune with our soul.
Yeah, completely agree, Mrs. Rhonda. Honestly speaking, definitely in this life that we are, we do have the physical part and we do have the spiritual part of our life. Definitely. If the physical is good and the spiritual is not good, it's not good for us. If the physical and the spiritual has to work in hand, and that is very important. So the way we are taking care of the physical part, we also need to try our best to make sure we take care of our spiritual part. And the only way we can do it is something we know we could hold on to, what we know we could do daily in the spiritual area. It could be yoga, as you said, it could be prayer and anything that you know that it connects that spirit back, it brings that nurturing back to the soul. It's very, very important. Honestly speaking, it's very, very important thing. When someone is even leading, it's very, very important. Or someone want to try to lead, it's very important. Thank you so much for those insights, Mrs. Rhonda. Lastly, Mrs. Rhonda, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Mrs. Rhonda. From the forefathers, there are a lot of beautiful things, as you said earlier, that do exist during our forefathers' time, but they are missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Rhonda, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Rhonda?
That's a great question, Timmy. So let's see. Everything that I've thought in my head, oh, I'll say this, I'll say this, I'll say this. I can see pieces of it everywhere. I just wish there were more of it. So more community times that's authentic, more family time that is authentic, deeper spiritual. Like right now, when I mention that spiritual stuff, I'm so glad you affirmed me in that. Thank you. But when I mention that to people, they don't even believe it. So how can we, that's when you go back ancient, ancient and even like I said 100 years ago, that's where the conversations were about. It didn't matter what religion you were or anything like that. It was how to connect spiritually and how to understand our world and know how we fit in. So those kind of deep conversations, I wish there was a place for more of that because what I'm finding now is, the job I have, that's what I end up doing. Even though I'm an executive coach, the life coaching part comes in because so many times the problems with the leadership and executive really is a personal issue. I'll be hired by a leader to say, "Hey, I need you to come in and help me work with this new team. They don't know what's going on. They've got all these problems." And then I'll go work with the team, and they're like, "Well, you need to talk to that guy." So I wish our um, wish we could just slow down. That's what I wish. I wish we could slow down time and speak clearly to more people, communicate with others, and realize we're all here to help one another and use our specific gifts to make this place better for everyone.
Yeah,
It might seem a little
definitely.
Pollyanna or idealistic, but that is what I wish.
Yeah, no, definitely. We do, you and I do agree that the truth is very bitter. And we definitely know that caring for one another, seeing each other, one another, seeing the rightful, having this type of care and support within each one another is as reduced. It has terminated in a very, very large way. And we have to agree with you, Mrs. Rhonda. It's definitely not easy. It's very, very difficult for some people because of those situations. I myself, as a young guy, I have to be agree with you that this time that we have is not easy. This community and this type of one another support and family that is not like before is really, really, everybody just want to be busy. Everybody want to strive. Everybody want to be on the top. And it's definitely not easy for everyone. Everybody can be on the top. It's just the truth. Everybody can be on the top. We have to definitely know how we could support each other and how we could care for each other. I definitely hope I experienced that before I leave this world. Honestly speaking, this time I also agree with you. It's not easy, but we'll definitely hope for the best in the coming future. I also want to use this opportunity to sincerely thank you for the time and the opportunity, Mrs. Rhonda, for speaking on leadership and also things that a leader needs to know. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rhonda.
You, thank you so much, Timmy. I wish you all the best of luck everywhere you go.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Rhonda. Bye bye.
Bye bye.